Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd like to just start off acknowledging the land in Alberta, which provides us with life. We're here in Treaty 6 territory, and we are all treaty people with a duty to live together in a good way that honors the people who came before us, including First Peoples of this land. And we work every day on reconciliation. I look ahead to make sure we're also taking responsibility for the generations that will follow us on this land. And Chair, if you'll indulge me a moment, I'd like to kick off this meeting with an acknowledgement of the great contributions made to the province of Alberta by former member of Sherwood Park, the Honourable Iris Evans. She at one time was even Minister of Municipal Affairs, and before she was elected to provincial office, she played an important role as Reeve of Sherwood Park, having Strathcona designated a specialized municipality. The designation is appropriate because Sherwood Park and Strathcona are definitely a special place. I'll start off the discussion in budget estimates with a look at the Municipal Affairs Business Plan. Minister, I appreciate your words to the members of the mid-sized cities that were visiting Edmonton last night, and you said something to the effect of, we all have the same bosses, and they expect us to work together to build a better Alberta. I agree with you, and I know I hear that sentiment often from my constituents in Sherwood Park. A lot has changed in Alberta since last year's budget. Alberta is facing increasingly difficult headwinds as our country faces a trade war with a formerly steadfast ally. We're living in a time of uncertainty, and with a growing population and rising costs, municipalities need support now more than ever. Catastrophic wildfires that you mentioned that have been crossing the wildland-urban divide are not once in a generation any longer. These events are something we're experiencing with fire weather on an annual occurrence, and Albertans have been displaced, traumatized, and are suffering for it. It's only March, and we already have 7 active wildfires in Alberta. Slave Lake, Fort McMurray, Edson, and now Jasper are communities that have needed to evacuate in recent years, and we can expect more communities in Alberta to have similar experiences like these going forward. We could not have predicted the fire that devastated Jasper, and we also could not have predicted the ham-fisted approach to helping municipality of Jasper that the government undertook after the fire. This government has weakened regional planning in the province by defunding the Edmonton and Calgary Metropolitan Regional Boards. This move opens the door to unmitigated urban sprawl in this province and has created the burdensome administrative need for new intermunicipal collaboration frameworks that need to be negotiated. You have put an end, I think, to something that was working very well in the Edmonton region and starting to work very well in the Calgary region. The EMRB and CMRB put multi-generational sustainable land use planning in place in Alberta that is now at risk of being ignored or at the very least needs to be renegotiated. Minister, since last year you've made an indelible mark on municipalities of Alberta with Bill 20 and 18 and with the defunding of the regional boards, which brings us to Budget 2025. Who knows how things will go, Minister? Change is constant in government. This may be your last budget as municipal affairs. I hope it's your best one.
Might be my last day.
It's up to the Premier.
It is. You serve at her pleasure for sure. The impression I get is that municipal leaders across the province believe you want to do right by municipalities, but that you are unable to get the support of your cabinet colleagues to deliver for municipalities. And like you said, Albertans want us to be working together, especially in my riding of Sherwood Park, but across Alberta. The Deputy Minister, I know, would probably agree Sherwood Park is a great place to be from and live. She knows what thoughtful and engaged Albertans live in Sherwood Park, just like your hometown of Calgary. The citizens of your constituency and the rest of Alberta want us to work together to build a better Alberta. So my first question for you, Minister, is really quite simple and straightforward. Do you want to work together to make the 2025 budget better for Albertans and Alberta municipalities?
Well, we will been working steadily with municipalities and all Albertans, and will continue to do so. I take some issue with some of your editorial comments, which you're certainly entitled to make, but that doesn't make them right. The fact is the funding, the temporary nature of the funding for both the Calgary and the Edmonton regional boards was an NDP decision when the NDP created those boards. the fact that the funding would always be temporary. So the removal of the funding is completely consistent with what the NDP decided for those boards. Now, one of the issues and the boards have done some good work together, and let me say this, I expect the municipalities will continue to do good work together. Great example, since the Calgary board has decided to not continue, City of Calgary and the Rocky View County have signed an agreement for an inland port. It was CP Rail on the east side of Calgary. It'll be one of a major economic driver for Alberta for decades to come. And if I'm not sure, they call it the Prairie Economic Gateway. The municipalities of Edmonton have made it clear they want to continue working together. So I don't think there's any doubt. And the fact is, they worked together for 100 years before the CMRB and the EMRB were in place. And I'm sure they'll continue to work together. And we will work together with them as as of last night, you mentioned we met with the mid-sized cities. We pretty much meet whenever they want. Last week, we had the AB Munis conference was there, and I spent lots of time with people there. Next week will be the Rural Municipalities of Alberta conference. I'll spend time with them again. So yeah, working together is what we do here. I've got great support from my MLA team and the government side and my amazing staff here. And yes, we have never stopped working together, and we will continue to. And that doesn't mean that the decisions are easy. Some of the things I highlighted in my opening remarks, sometimes you can give the municipalities get more money, as shown through the LGFF, and sometimes we have to make difficult budget decisions. I think it's wrong for you to characterize it as not getting support from cabinet. Actually, as you know, that this budget, and we're not happy about the fact that it has a $5 billion deficit, but the fact is most, if not all, municipality or ministries had to take a haircut here and there. Municipal affairs were on the team. So we had to do our part, and yet we managed to come up with $100 million more overall in funding for the municipalities, largely due to the LGFF, what we got there, and able to bring back the GPOT to 100% over 2 years. So I would say my working relationship with cabinet is very good, and I expect it will remain that way.
So can you help me understand the latitude you have as the minister with the budget for municipal affairs? What can you decide on your own, and what do you need to take back to the Treasury Board? For example, municipal affairs in the statement of business plan, the statement of operations, your department estimates you'll be spending $15 million this fiscal year on the Calgary Event Center Community Rink and $2 million on the Edmonton Event Park. What latitude do you have as a minister to direct those funds to other capital investments? Could you take $2 million from the Edmonton Event Park and convert it into a capital grant to the city for them to determine the highest and best use? Could you take $15 million from the Calgary Event Center Community Rink to do the same for the City of Calgary as a grant so they can determine the highest and best use? How do we help? When do you have to take it to Treasury Board? And how do we help you be successful at Treasury Board?
Well, I would say this, the commitments in Calgary and Edmonton are commitments that we made. Our government tries to keep our commitments. It's our intention to do that and certainly not change it. I don't know why we would take $2 million out of the Edmonton program and give it to Municipal Council. Municipal Council voted for the MOU that was signed. So they've already expressed through their council that they want the Edmonton program. The Calgary Council voted in favor of the development in the infrastructure improvements around the Calgary Stampede grounds. So I don't know why I would do those things. It would be breaking a commitment to the very communities that I think you're suggesting would be supportive. But so by breaking a commitment to them, I don't know how that's supportive. But I'll ask Shakib to talk about, because I think the question was, what do you have to do to change it? So there's some legal limitations. One of them is, I think I know, is if I spend money without budget permission, I either have to pay it back personally or risk going to jail, and that all sounds like a bad idea to me. Shakib, you?
Sure. So with respect to minister's authority, so municipal affairs does have a voted appropriation, so approximately $1.3 billion for 25-26. The conditions under which minister would have to go to Treasury Board, if we were to exceed that voted appropriation for any reason, that requires Treasury Board approval. Minister does have latitude to move money between programs, notwithstanding signed agreements that are in place. However, moving money between programs in excess of $5 million also requires Treasury Board approval.
That's great. And so when I look at that 1.37 billion, they have the number approximately right. And I recognize that there's a big chunk there that's the federal grants program. But it is possible to imagine we could get to a $1 billion starting point for LGFF with Treasury Board's approval within the allotment that we have. Getting it closer would be possible.
Well, Treasury Board also needs to go to the Legislative Assembly to have which is what the whole budget process is about, to have an envelope of money that they're allowed to spend. And if they wanted to spend more, of course, they'd have to go back to the Legislative Assembly for a supply bill to have a bigger money supply. So what's important is that we make the budget as carefully as we can in the first place, because adding money to it is no automatic, simple, or easy process. And I would say, as it shouldn't be. I think we all in government bear the responsibility of trying to make careful, good decisions. Having said that, there's multiple circumstances over the years where different governments have had to go back for more money supply, sometimes after disasters, flood, fire, other circumstances that crop up. So I suppose if the Legislative Assembly voted for it, there's no limit to the amount of money we could spend, but I'm not sure that always makes it a good idea.
Nor is it what I'm asking. I'm just saying within your 1.3 billion, do you have the latitude to get the LGFF up to a higher number? And I'm hearing that it's possible, but there is work to do.
That's the thing. When you add money to a program, unless you go for more supply, you gotta take money away from somebody else. And as you might imagine, the party getting more money is probably happier than the party losing it. Our programs, the LGFF is based on an agreement with the municipalities where it goes up and down with the government's revenues. Boy, the municipalities asked for this, and it was a long time getting it done. And I would sure be reticent to go back on one of the biggest promises we've kept to municipalities, especially when they authored it. Really.
Yeah,
I mean,
LGFF
of course,
robust policy.
government had to action it, but it really was a direct request directly from Alberta's municipalities.
Okay, thank you. Well, we'll switch gears a little bit. So, unlike the Income Tax Act, all Albertans with homes owned or rented will face an education property tax increase. I think in the fiscal plan tables on revenue, there is increases that are set out from 2025 to 2028 for education property tax. And the government of Alberta is raising education property taxes to make up for revenue shortfalls, maybe due to personal income tax breaks or community revitalization levies or oil and gas property tax holidays. It's an election year for municipalities. It is unfortunate that the province is increasing the educational property taxes that municipalities are mandated to collect for you the same time that year that they will have to go to the voters to ask for permission to have their job. Maybe I'll just focus first on municipal property tax holidays for oil and gas. I know those are ending or phased out, but those property tax holidays have shorted the collection of education property taxes. And so we were giving a break to oil and gas companies that was then not being collected for revenue for education. And so how much of the educational property tax did Albertans lose due to oil and gas property tax holidays that this government has previously had in place?
Well, let me just say that I hate to say it, but the way you characterized the increase in property tax, that somehow money was lost somewhere else, is completely wrong. It is a matter of the education costs more. We have a lot more children in Alberta than we had last year. Our government is part of that, or it's part of the reason that our government, it's not part of my budget, but it kind of answers your question, which does touch on my ministry's budget. Committed to $8.6 billion to build schools. I think most Albertans, including the ones running municipalities, are severely in favor of that. And I'd ask you to bear in mind that with the education property tax, it in this year's budget, it pays for 31.6% of education. The increase is not due to any other spending decisions. It's based on the amount to contribute, less than 1/3 to pay for the education system. And I think all Albertans want a great education system. They want more schools, they want more teachers, and they want more other staff. And most Albertans agree once in a while that the teachers and the other staff deserve a raise. So when you add all that up, you're still only at less than 1/3 of the education budget, and the rest has to come out of other government revenues. Now, let me say that you expressed concern about municipalities having to explain that when they go to the polls. And when I talk to municipalities, I tell them, blame me. Yeah, blame, as they should. You know why? Because it's the truth. I always say to municipalities, just tell people the truth. Is that part of their property tax bill? The truth is the government sets that tax rate, and the government makes, I know that doesn't sound like a nice word, but the government makes the municipalities collect it and remit it. They must. That they're legally bound to do so. That was true when I was a municipal councillor, and it's still true when I'm the municipal affairs minister. So I think when I talk to municipalities, and I say, for goodness sakes, just tell them the truth. And in fact, we're in the midst of getting a letter together that some municipalities had that I'll certainly sign my name to, explaining that the education property tax is a provincial government requisition, something we require the municipalities to collect and remit, and you shouldn't be blaming your council for that. The councils have their own explaining to do if they have a tax increase, and I'm sure most of them, if not all, are well able to do it because they have many reasons why they need to do that too. So I just got to say, not trying to be unpleasant with you, but the way you've characterized it is almost completely incorrect. It's not the increase in the education property tax requisition is not because of any additional spending or tax cuts or anything else. It's a matter of it costs more for education, and a certain percentage of that comes from property tax. And I don't think everybody in Alberta pretty much knows that a lot of people have moved in here in the last year or two, including a lot of kids, takes more schools, takes more teachers, and just the inflation on things. So nobody likes to pay more taxes. I don't, you don't, nobody does, but we have to explain our piece. Municipalities have to explain their piece. And I always tell them, I'm very happy for you to tell people the truth about the government made you collect this money.
Mr. What I like best about what you just said is that you said education workers deserve a raise, and I really agree with that. That sounds very good. So we'll move in a little bit here. And this is just asking for some clarity on a program that I think is expiring in 2025, 2026 year. That's the Provincial Education Requisition Credit, PERC. And so that impacts education funding. And so this is just a genuine question. How does that cash flow work? And
Ethan, can you kind of, I have in general terms, I think Ethan will give you a more technically accurate answer.
So the PERC program is the Provincial Education Requisition Credit. It provides municipalities with a credit for uncollectible oil and gas property taxes. It's actually, from a financial statement point of view, handled a little bit differently year to year. So in the 24-25 fiscal year, there's actually a reduction in the projected government revenues of $3 million to account for the projected PERC amount. And the intention for the 25-26 fiscal year is that there's sufficient funding in what's called the net asset fund of the Alberta School Foundation Fund, which is essentially retained interest income in that fund to cover PERC without having an effect on the overall provincial revenue collected.
okay, so then with PERC, then education fund is not shortchanged. That's the benefit. Okay, thanks very much.
And while if some oil and gas companies don't pay their taxes, and they all should, I think we all agree on that, the PERC makes sure that municipalities they don't have to remit that part of the education tax. That's what the PERC does, but they do lose the direct municipal tax. It does cost them.
Okay, okay.
Right?
That's good to know. Will the minister be reviewing its usefulness in 25, 26 that maybe it's something that it helps make municipalities and education whole?
Well, sir, we might not agree on everything, but we agree that we have to find a solution and keep working for a solution that all the oil and gas companies, even the ones that behave bad, have to pay their taxes. And when we do that, perks will not be needed anymore.
Fair. Okay. So let's move on to that. Delinquent oil and gas property tax avoiders. Do we have an acronym for them? Just bad actors.
The people that should be able to, listen, I've been clear. If a shoe store doesn't pay their taxes, somebody puts them out of business. If a restaurant doesn't pay their taxes, somebody puts them out of business. And my opinion is, if an oil and gas company doesn't pay their taxes, they should also be put out of business.
Okay. So we're going to lead to the hopefully I get to it through the right route, but so for the companies that have not or will not pay, I guess, well, multiple part question. What will you do to get the Minister of Energy to enforce payment of property taxes by energy companies with mature assets? Will the government need to go to insolvency proceedings to collect unpaid education property taxes? Do you have plans to make municipalities whole for the unpaid property taxes from the bad actors, especially, I guess, given that PERC is going away?
I guess the short answer is no on that. But on your initial question about working together with people, in fact, really in the last 2 days, we've come to an agreement with rural municipalities of Alberta and the energy minister and our ministries to work together in a working group to talk about the problem of unpaid oil and gas. And the RMA acknowledges that we've done a lot of work for them, but they also say that it still hasn't fully solved the problem. So we are going to put our heads together with our municipal partners and with the Ministry of Energy and look for and strategize together on how we might be able to put this problem to an end. Certainly RMA's media release made it clear they're encouraged by the willingness of myself and Minister Jean to work to seek holistic solutions to the issue, to find a property tax accountability strategy. And again, I'll repeat my attitude. If you're not paying your taxes, somebody should put you out of business. If you or I were running a business and we didn't pay our taxes, someone would come and take our business away. Pretty sure of that.
For sure. So the RMA did put out their press release today on this. You've probably seen it. So I think 253.9 million is what they're measuring is outstanding as of the end of last year, December 31st, 2024.
And I'm not criticizing them for that. That's their number.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to look in to see how much of that is hard taxes not paid and how much is penalties that municipalities have added on and added on and added on. And I'm not criticizing that, but there's a little bit. But the number you said is what is in their press release. Okay. And
they seem to have narrowed it down to 10 really bad actors that collectively owe about a third of that, it seems. But that's spread out across 38 different municipalities. So it's, yeah.
Yeah, well, you know what, again, I'm not really fighting with you.
Nope.
I have 59, but
Okay.
the total's the same, so whether, I mean, if you're one of those municipalities, it means the world to you, but for our conversation here, it's, the unpaid money is the unpaid money, and it's gotta stop being unpaid.
Right, and the work is in progress, I guess, continue. It's been something we've, I guess, been on and on about, so I guess.
No, and as RMA acknowledges, we made a number of efforts with them to make it better, and it's not better enough, so we're gonna work together in a working group with my ministry and the energy ministry and RMA to strategize to try to bring this to a final end. I think we're talking about trying to establish a mandatory condition with the Alberta Energy Regulator that property taxes are to be paid before approving well transfers and such, and they can do that now, but my objective is to make it, whatever it is, fierce enough, harsh enough, final enough to make the non-payments stop.
So to the chair, to the other members in the room, I would just say, I think the minister is on board with this, and we really need to make sure that you push the Minister of Energy to not write letters to the AER giving these companies a free walk. So that was what I would say to the other members of the room.
Yeah, I'm sure the Minister of Energy will have estimates if he doesn't have them yet, and I'm sure that somebody from your side and our side will all have a whack at him, and I'm sure he'll do his best to answer this question.
Thanks, Minister. I'd like to talk about community revitalization levies. We've got about, when I went to the government website, for municipal affairs. There's 6 CRLs currently in place on the municipal affairs website for the community revitalization levy. The challenge with these, I view a couple. It does shortchange municipalities. I think I understand it properly. It shortchanges education, the collection of education property tax is part of how I understand it. Make sure I have that clarity right.
No, it gets collected. If community gets permission from our ministry actually to have a CRL, and there's a geographic area that it covers. So of course the education property tax that would be paid or that's paid, what goes to the CRL infrastructure development, as does the municipal taxes. The municipality would collect that from the remainder of the municipality, the remaining property owners. So depending on how big the CRL is, let me say this, in most cases it's a fairly marginal difference, but it is more money for the other taxpayers. But the fact that the CRL, I think, is maximum 3% of the tax, of the property tax take. So if they can only have 3% of the property tax take in the CRL, and that 3% that doesn't get paid there gets spread out over the 97%. So it's a pretty small percentage increase, but it's an increase, and I'm not downplaying it. Okay, I'm not hiding it. I'm just saying it gets paid, it gets spread out over the rest of the municipality, and the municipality that has a CRL, to some degree, I don't like to use the word gambling, but they try to do good work in the CRL area in order to increase the usage, the value and the quantity of the infrastructure and the number of buildings, so that when the CRL is over, they potentially will start receiving forever from that point up 10, 20, 50 times as much tax from that area of dirt as they were getting before the CRL, if it's done properly, if it's successful, if it goes as planned.
Okay, so I think an important thing is that education property tax isn't shortchanged. There was something in the tax plan on page 125, tax expenditure estimates. Education property tax for community revitalization levy, that was 21.6 million. It sounded like that was an expenditure, but it wasn't sure if that was keeping it away from education, like education fund. I just want to try to understand that.
Education, I believe, remains whole, but again, because I don't want to mislead you, I'm going to ask my staff to give you the technical answer there.
No, that's correct, Minister. The overall amount of the education property tax requisition is set by Treasury Board as part of the budget development process. That then gets divided up into individual municipal requisitions, their share of that overall provincial requisition. So if you have a CRL in your municipality, your property assessment base that's taxable for education purposes is a little bit smaller than it would be, and so that tax is collected from every other taxable jurisdiction. Where we do like to identify that portion of education property tax from a CRL, you'll hear it sometimes referred to as foregone education property tax revenue. That's to identify the value of the provincial contribution to the overall investment that goes into a CRL area, although it doesn't actually mean that the education property tax revenue was reduced province-wide.
Okay, and so I think the important thing, is that education is made whole still. But the other, I'm not going to call them ratepayers, I don't have a better name for it. The other taxpayers, they pick up the slack for the properties inside the boundary. Okay, appreciate that. No, that's okay. Then I'll take a break to breathe. Hold on, I got to give you a little bit of choose your next direction, Minister. If I can get to the top of my page.
Don't wait for me. I can keep up.
We're gonna go. You're doing great. You're doing great. Have a drink of water. Next direction we're gonna go, Minister. Calgary Event Center Community Rink or the Edmonton Event Park? Which one do you want to do first?
They're both in the budget. They're both on an agreed schedule. Both result of an agreement with the local municipality. And in each case, the local municipality voted for it, and we intend to honor both those agreements.
Calgary or Edmonton first?
We're going to honor both agreements.
I know, but which one would you like me to talk about first and ask you some questions?
You know, if you need my advice on that, you're in more trouble than I think you are.
All right. Well, why don't we go do Calgary first? Because that's let's go Calgary first. All right. In Calgary, you're using provincial dollars, I think, to fund 30 million of provincial dollars for a single sheet of ice. I think we clarified that last year. It's going to be a single ice rink. I think it's practice facility for the Flames.
Most people call it an arena.
An arena. But it's a sheet of ice, sometimes within, I don't know if, I got into whether we call it a facility or arena, but let's call it an arena with one sheet of ice. And so the government's already contributing $330 million towards the Calgary Flames NHL arena. I think the Calgary Flames Club could probably find a way to pay for their own practice ice. There doesn't seem to be any shortage of demand for ice time in Calgary. And Minister, are you familiar with Silent Ice Center in Leduc County or maybe the facility being built for the Sherwood Park Crusaders and the BCHL team in Strathcona County?
But who?
There you go. So that you probably might not have heard it because
The community rink will be primarily for public use and amateur hockey leagues and provide community amenities, gathering spaces for public use within the area. It's very much a public amenity.
yep, I appreciate that.
And, yeah.
So Silent Ice Center in Leduc County is 2 state-of-the-art NHL-sized rinks in one complex. Let's call it an arena. The Ice Center for Sherwood Park Crusaders hockey team is an $86 million project being funded and developed by a private investor. We'll have 4 sheets of ice in that arena with seating capacity for 2,500 people. Through a 20-year agreement, the county provided land and a $4 million equity investment, which will be paid back by the hockey club. The county will spend almost $1 million a year in support of operations of the facility. And they got a benefit of 2,400 hours of ice time that has been secured for minor hockey in Sherwood Park. I bring these up, Minister, because given the situation in Strathcona County and Leduc County, in which private hockey clubs and businesses have been able to build world-class ice surfaces without provincial government financial contributions, would you have the latitude to divert the money budgeted for the Calgary Community Rink to a grant for the city of Calgary so they can put it to their highest and best use? And would you be willing to do that if you could?
I would say the city of Calgary has already decided. They voted on this, and they made an agreement that they wanted this to happen, and we agreed with them, and we intend to honor that agreement, because that's what good governments try to do. I know there's extreme circumstances from time to time when municipalities or governments or companies can't always meet their things, but I think it's important for honorable people and governments to try to do that, and we intend to do that. And just for the record, on the community rink, the public use programming is at a 15% reduced rate to the market rate of ice rental at similar facilities. So there's even a greater than usual public benefit from that particular arena compared to even other public arenas. So, and City of Calgary's voted to say they're in favor of this. So I'm not sure why you and I would. Certainly, I'm not going to. I don't know why you're suggesting that Calgary didn't know what they wanted or they made a mistake. They certainly voted on it, that they're in favor of this. So I made, you know what, I don't always agree on every decision that every municipality in Alberta makes, but they're duly elected and they get to make them.
Well, let's switch over to Edmonton. The government, it just seems that there was so we're going to be referring a lot to this memorandum of understanding that I think was announced on March 7th. I think that's when it came out. The government seems to insist on tying funding for municipalities to deals that benefit businesses before they benefit the rest of Alberta. That's how it feels with this memorandum of understanding. And I'll back up a little bit. When I look at funding for Jasper property tax stabilization funding, which I know they're glad is in place now, for a while it was tied to the negotiation for long-term leases with Parks Canada that the government was hoping the town could arrange for them. And the situation was quite dire in Jasper, and the municipality desperately needed this funding. And the negotiating approach by the government of Alberta was quite strong and insisted on getting a deal that was going to be benefit so that down the road, in the version that you were hoping for, the interim housing could be turned around and sold as real estate in Jasper. It wasn't a good solution for Jasper. It's not what worked out in the end, but I know that that was the approach that was taken, and you negotiated very hard for that. So the provincial government, I know, can negotiate strongly at times. Now, when you're dealing with a business like the Oilers Entertainment Group, it feels a little bit like you somehow have rolled over and not negotiated as hard as you could or as well as you could for the benefit of all Albertans or Edmontonians or people in the Edmonton region.
Edmonton Council voted for this. Like, I don't know, I'm less anxious to tell Edmonton and Calgary they don't know what they're doing. You seem more anxious to tell them they don't know what they're doing. I recognize that they're duly elected. And again, I don't have to like every decision that every municipality makes, but it's important that for me, and I think our government, to recognize they're duly elected and to do the best they can. And it doesn't mean I have to agree with every detail of every municipality's decision, but by golly, real Albertans really elected them, and they really have authority to make decisions. Your friend sitting 2 seats to your right will be able to explain that to you.
Well, I'll just will say, like, when you offer a $330 million grant for the construction of a new arena, which I know Calgarians want, and, you know, like I've said before, I want the Oilers to have a place that's really nice to beat the Calgary Flames in, and they'll have that at the future. But when you add on a
They
little
could try.
$30 million grant for an ice sheet that I know could be funded without provincial funding, it's something I want to just take an issue with. And then when I look at what's coming together for the city of Edmonton in your memorandum of understanding, we can go through each of the parts of it. It's a 3-part thing: the village at ice district, the demolition of the Coliseum, and also the event park. And when we break down each portion of that, the city of Edmonton wants revitalization. I think you want revitalization. I want revitalization of downtown Edmonton. I want to work together to find a way that maybe with a memorandum of understanding, you say, well, look, we heard a little bit, we want to negotiate maybe a bit of a better deal for the benefit of Albertans and make sure it benefits Albertans before it benefits the business first. And so that's what I'm looking for you from. And when we go into the breakdown, we can get into it. But key thing is I know the councils are doing this because they want something, but it feels like so much is tied together. So one question I would ask, if you could, would you be willing to break up the parts of the deal, the multiple parts of the deal with the city of Edmonton so that we can make sure we have better use of the grant money coming from the government of Alberta?
If I could, I
Mr.
would.
Chair?
Excuse me, point of order has been called.
Point of order under 23B, the member opposite is asking a question as well outside of the scope of our work here. And one of the reasons why I would say that is because I think that what he's asking is, you know, to have the minister negotiate this or that. Well, the member could always run for a conservative, you know, position and form part of government and have that opportunity to be able to negotiate with the minister on these things. But when it comes to estimates, I'm not sure what this has anything to do with the budget that we have at hand.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is not a point of order. The member has clearly demonstrated the line items that he's speaking to, where it is in the breakdown of the budget. All he's clearly asking, which is part of the budget process, is whether or not we can reorganize the way the funds are currently presented in the budget and whether or not they can be broken up into another piece. It's a fair question to ask the minister if there's an opportunity to do that and to adjust the line items. It's done all the time in budget estimates.
I would suggest I think the minister has answered it a couple of times. And so if you could get to your point and I'll let you answer it one more time. So we won't call it a point of order, but we can get to the point and get to the next subject.
So
Listen, I don't want to cut you off, but no, listen, I respect Edmonton City Council, the decision they made, the MOU that they voted for. I think it's important for our government to try to honor agreements that are made. I'm not sure whether you don't like the affordable housing or the space that's going to be used for public space that used to have tent cities where people were beaten up and raped and taken advantage of by gangs. It's revitalizing an area of downtown that desperately needs revitalizing. And it's gonna make it, I hope, virtually impossible to have tent cities there in the future where all that misbehavior and social disorder takes place. I think that there's a lot of rent is gonna be built for rental purpose for students, for low income and both affordable and attainable housing. All things that are positive, well within the purview of the city of Edmonton to want our government to contribute to. Certainly consistent with our government's objectives is to help deal with social disorder and have more affordable and attainable housing and more vibrant downtowns for not just our two big cities, but all of the 330 municipalities in Alberta. So, I don't know. Anyway, so listen, my objective is not to renege on an agreement that our government has. I just think that would hurt our government's reputation for every other agreement we try to make in the future if we were to back off on one, especially while the ink's essentially almost still wet.
In terms of the withdrawn support for the Edmonton and Calgary regional boards, and I do think they did great use in land use planning. Will there be some flexibility? Is there going to be any money extra set aside for ICF work that would be coming up and arising from the dissolving of those boards? I know that there's $13.4 million budgeted for Alberta Community Partnership Grant Program. Is this to support intermunicipal collaboration, capacity building, and asset management? That's just from your line, but is there extra in there to accommodate, or is that sort of been flat from last year? What are you predicting in terms of the ICF work that's going to be coming up this year as a result of the elimination of those boards?
Well, listen, all the municipalities know that since they voted to dissolve the Calgary Municipal Regional Board and the Edmonton Municipal Regional Boards are going to have to all negotiate ICFs. We hope they'll be successful with it. I think we've made it known that we're going to, I think this session of the legislature, we're going to try to update and improve the rules around ICFs, which again is another example of us listening to municipalities, because the last round, while the vast majority of them went well, the ones that didn't go well really didn't go well. And we, working with municipalities, we've tracked a lot of those disagreements, fights, court cases, whatever, back to what we, with the municipalities agree are shortcomings in how the ICFs are structured, and either a lack of specific rules around them and a lack of limitations around them that lead to misunderstandings. So we've worked really hard with municipalities to do that. There's going to be some new, we hope better, I think most municipalities will agree, better rules for ICFs. All the municipalities that are in the Calgary and Edmonton boards know they're going to have to renegotiate or negotiate ICFs with all their neighbors. It's a process that they've done before and many times, and we hope that they won't need help. But in some cases, it may turn out as a couple of cases where somebody needs help for a moderator or something, and the ACP, it's ACP eligible. But until they have a chance to actually work together and get along, we won't know how many cases they'll need assistance from that program and how much of that program will be made available for them. Municipalities typically ask for help, and we try to judge each request on its own merits and grant the funding, all, part, or not, depending on the merit, and try to be fair to everybody and try to do what's right, and bearing in mind municipalities have a certain amount of responsibility to get along and sign an agreement. So we try to make sense of that in partnership with municipalities. I think we've been reasonably successful at it generally, and we'll try to be reasonable or reasonably successful or more on it this time around.
Okay, this is going a little bit outside of your funding portfolio, but hear me out, because I think it's worthwhile, and it's coming from an important stakeholder. The FCS program is an 80-20 funding program. So that's flat, and given the recognizing our growth of over 400,000 people that have come to this province means that intervention support is tougher to come by and harder for municipalities to provide. So I guess where do you recommend municipalities find the money in the budget for prevention? And from a cabinet perspective, with the AHS reform, AHS has been funding a lot of prevention. When the funding is flat, where's the prevention going to come from in the budget? What is your commitment to investing in prevention, and what should be the role of municipalities, maybe is a more important question, in health prevention in this province?
Well, you started with FCSS, and I think you're gonna have to direct those questions to the Minister of Seniors and Social Services. And I don't know if he's had his estimates yet or not, but, probably should ask those questions to that particular minister. And in terms of health is primarily a provincial responsibility. Municipalities, I guess, have, through natural person power, some ability to contribute to that if they think it's important for their community, and they each get to make those decisions whether they think it's a good idea or not, and also make that decision based on what financial capacity they have in their municipality, of course weighing against all the myriad of other responsibilities they have. Running a municipality is a tough business, but the one thing that we have done with the LGFF compared to the MSI is the operating envelope is 60 million, where it used to be 30 million a couple years ago, and they have the flexibility in that envelope to contribute to the things that they think will make their community successful and grow and all of that. So my opinion isn't really as important as the municipality's opinion, and there might be 330 different answers for 330 different municipalities, and that doesn't mean any of the answers are wrong. That means that each of them, again, are duly elected, and they have the responsibility and the authority to make those kind of decisions, and I try to respect that authority that they have.
Thanks, Minister. Now, just looking back to Jasper, there's been a lot of bumps in the last few months. Jasper was worried that the province would not pay for the site servicing for the interim housing. I understand that those site servicing costs have now been approved. Is that correct?
Not by us, I don't think.
They're DRP eligible.
Yeah, they are DRP eligible, so they might get them that way.
Okay.
But remember, I wouldn't characterize the way you described what happened in Jasper as accurate also. Listen, with Jasper, we went in, and our intention was to, I think it was $100 million plus, to build a bunch of homes there. And they wanted it built on the grounds that it was an emergency, which I think we can all agree there was an emergency there. And with the homes that, they preferred multifamily homes, but what we've felt after shopping around, that the homes that we could get in a fast enough time that you could call it an emergency were mostly single family, pre-modular homes. And we were hoping to inspire Parks Canada to give us the leases so we could build those homes. So initially we tied that to the property tax support. But at the end of the day, somebody other than us decided they wanted multifamily homes for sure. So they rejected our offer.
Yeah.
So we changed our policy and gave them the income, we gave them the tax support without having to build the home. So fortunately, I guess the federal government and Parks Canada stepped up and to help. They were, and I'm grateful for that, let me be clear, but part of the problem was they were pretty late to the game. We were working with Jasper while the fire was on, and as soon as the fire was out, and we've been working with Jasper ever since. The Premier and I chair a committee that meets regularly, and all we talk about is how to help Jasper. And basically, as it became apparent that they were not going to accept the housing we were offering, then we shifted gears, and we got them the support for the missing taxes. But you also mentioned about selling the homes, but yeah, that was an ambition of ours, to actually maximize the help we were giving Jasper, to provide homes that people could live in on an interim basis and rent while their home was being constructed, and then leave those homes there permanently. What we wanted was a permanent lease from Parks Canada so that the homes could be sold to add to Jasper's housing stock, something Jasper desperately needs. There's people that would like to buy a home there that can't, there's none to buy. So we thought we could help solve part of that problem. At any rate, I'm not criticizing the town, but they decided to go another way. And so we fairly quickly, I think, shifted gears and said, okay, well, we'll just give you the money for the tax relief because that's what we always intended to do.
Great.
And we have delivered.
So, let's focus on the DRP. We're trying a new policy, as I understand, for a 90-10 split. And this is the first time it's sort of really been, it's not very new,
It's not the first time.
but it's relatively new policy and maybe hasn't dealt with such large amounts. And so I know that we're talking about the payback, like the municipality's gonna have to pay back, come up with like $7.5 million. Is that my understanding, to return of the DRP funding?
Sure,
I'm gonna ask Ethan to.
Yeah, I mean,
jump on this.
the disaster recovery program is under the Public Safety and Emergency Services Ministry, but our understanding is that based on the initial estimate for the Jasper program, it's roughly $7 million would be their projected share, but bear in mind, those cost estimates for their program are updated all the time, and that was an initial estimate.
I guess, and I mean, I don't know if Ethan, I can ask a question to you through the chair, but like this, like $7.5 million is a pretty big amount to have to pay back, and maybe when the 90-10 split was conceived, it wasn't thought of that the payments would be this large.
Let me say, one of the contexts that the 90-10 split started with was to encourage people when they build back, to build back in a less risky place. Now, it's not quite as straightforward with fires, but it's very much pretty straightforward with floods. If you're in a place where you're in a floodway in your home or your business and it gets flooded out, and if you build back there in the same place and it gets flooded out, and you build back there in the same place and it gets flooded out, I think most Albertans would say, well, that just doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't you incent people to build somewhere else? And that's kind of one of the reasons for the initial reasons for the 90-10. And in fact, when that come through, especially with the floods, we would say to people, we're going to give you 90%, and if you build back in the same place, we're never going to support you again. But if you build back in a place out of the floodway, then we'll support you again next time there's a disaster. And I think it makes sense. I think most Albertans would agree that what doesn't make sense is to build a home in the same place that's going to either flood again or burn down again over and over and over again. No, I don't think anybody think that makes sense. So part of the 90-10 is to incent the reconstruction to happen where there's a lower chance of the structure being taken down again by because if you're in a floodway, you're still in the floodway.
Sure, but I don't think you're suggesting that they don't build back Jasper in the exact same spot that.
It's a little more straightforward with floods than it is with fires.
Sure.
I did think I said that out loud. So, yeah.
Okay. I'm getting the impression that you might be coming, you might have a municipality of Jasper coming to you in time and saying, we don't know where we're gonna come up with our $7 million because we used 100% of the DRP.
Well, we'll when Jasper comes to us, we will always listen to them and consider what we can do for them. We've made it clear we'll be with them through their recovery. It doesn't mean it's a blank check that they can have anything they want, but our objective, what's good for Jasper is good for Alberta. What's good for Jasper is good for Canada. They're a crown jewel in Canada's tourism book and a crown jewel in Alberta's tourism book. We want them back. We want them back full. We want them back strong, and we'll work with them to try to help them, as we have been. And no one's worked with them more than the government of Alberta, even before the fire was out. We've been there every day, every step of the way.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm going to pass off to MLA Sweet now.
This side, Member Kosowski, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And thanks, Minister. Before I go too much further, I just wish I would have done this at the beginning, Chair. I just want to thank all the staff, especially from the ministry that are here today for providing us with all the questions. I'm going to plant an idea that'll give you time to research, and it's on housing foundations. And housing availability, and this comes back to the business plan, Municipal Affairs Business Plan Outcome 1, Key Objective 1.4, work with municipalities to enable that you can have legislation and regulations that will improve opportunity for increasing the housing stock. One of those ways we do that is with housing foundations locally. So some fast-growing municipalities have proposed an interesting idea, and it fits with an idea that's legislation that's been brought forward by the government, where now we will bring school grounds and hospitals and other healthcare facilities onto the books for the province. So park this thought and come back to me with the answer. Can the government take properties for housing foundations onto their books to increase the ability for growing municipalities like, let's say, Airdrie, to borrow more funding to expand the housing inventory for their housing foundations? So that's an interesting question I want to get to.
Well, I think actually, we'll get a little more meat on the bones on that. I think in the case of Edmonton, I think they're doing something like that now, using some of the school sites that they're in control of, and trying to build affordable housing on them. So I guess I can tell you now it's a parcel, yes, but we'll try to get you a bit more detail on the answer. How's that?
Good. Yeah, that's good. GPOT, the question has been asked, so I need to ask it. Why not 100% right off the bat? What's holding us back? And was there any consideration of backfilling unpaid grants in place of taxes?
There wasn't any consideration by me of backfilling GPOT. But it's, you know what, we're under budget pressures. We managed to get the 75% through for this year and 100% for next year, and yep, that's where we are.
Okay, and actually I'm feeling like I've had more time, and I was feeling I had to be so rapid through this. But I will, I'll go back to, with Municipal Affairs Business Plan with the expenses and capital expenses for the Edmonton Event Park, but in particular, the village at Ice District and the demolition of the Coliseum and the Edmonton Event Park. We've talked about the memorandum of understanding, which we know you're committed to and council's committed to, but we are in uncertain times, and the business partner may back out. Again, we have non-binding contract right now. It's just a memorandum of understanding. So I think what we need to hear for the city of Edmonton's benefit and for all Albertans' benefit is that, the revitalization and the funding and grants that are tied to these three projects are going to still be in place, especially the grants, if the Oilers Entertainment Group backs out. So we know the province is there with the grants. And I'll remind the minister, you were probably there when the premier said she's going to be ruthlessly fair with City of Edmonton and Calgary. And so when we're looking at grants for these projects, will those grants be in place with or without the Oilers Entertainment Group?
Yeah, I'm just not going to answer a hypothetical question. Right now, there's an agreement. No one's backed out that I'm aware of. Our intention is to honor it. If the situation changes, we'll look carefully at it. But no, the last thing I'm going to do is tear apart confidence in an agreement that was just signed by saying what if. Nobody, I've heard no indication except from you that there's a party might back out of it, but I'm not sure you actually said they will. You're just saying what if, and I guess I hope you'll forgive me, but I'm not going to play the what if game on you. If the circumstances change, we'll consider the new circumstances.
Yeah, and I'm trying to bolster the confidence, Minister, which is saying we're there with or without the Oilers Entertainment Group.
We're there with Alberta's communities, Edmonton, Calgary, and the other 228 Alberta communities, come what may. And we'll roll with the punches the best we can, try to be a good partner, try to support them, spend our approved budget with that, or approve it so they can spend it to the best advantage of their citizens, in their citizens' best interest. And we get surprised all the time, and we just do our best to shift gears.
Okay, fair. The provincial budget has a lot of directed funding, and back to that LGFF. Is it sort of the intention going forward that you'll be looking to put more money in future years into LGFF, or it will be kind of a large portion going to directed funding, which sort of is provincial priorities versus those local priorities?
So the LGFF funding is designed to go up and down with the provincial revenue. That's the plan. And that's the plan. That's what I hope to continue to do. You know, it's funny, municipalities, one of the things they ask for is the flexibility to make their own decisions. And LGFF gives them that flexibility. I think it's the best way you can do it for them. And of course, you're depending on the municipalities making good decisions. But again, they're all duly elected like we are. And sometimes if you're duly elected, that gives you authority to make bad decisions. Now, we all hope that our government makes good decisions. We all hope that each municipality makes good decisions. But occasionally, other decisions are made by municipalities, and we try to help them when that happens. But we also respect the fact they're duly elected, and I don't know, like you and I, whoever elected you for 4 years, right or wrong. And when they elected me for 4 years, right or wrong. So vote carefully is the lesson, I think.
Good advice. Just looking at the estimates for municipal affairs, and I think it's about capital grants, investing in Canada infrastructure, rural and northern communities, noticing that that's gone down, considering the member for Grand Prairie is here and growing the north is a big focus. What was that led to the federal funding going down for the rural and northern communities? And I hope it's not the answer. I hope it's not Bill 18.
No, it's definitely not Bill 18. The projects apparently that were approved are mostly complete, is what
Okay.
I'm told. Seems makes sense, I think.
Okay. Miles will get back to that infrastructure deficit that gets brought up by all the municipalities, and the numbers are now ranging from 17.2 billion currently to growing by the end of this business plan 2028 to 40 billion. Is there a run to failure approach by this government? It seems to be how the municipalities are receiving it.
No, I don't think they are receiving it that way. I guess you may find an example or two where they say that, but I think there's some encouragement from our ministry to the municipalities. Not all of them have it, but we encourage them to have a capital replacement program to kind of keep track of where things are. Now, if run to failure is fine as long as it's on purpose. You know what I mean? If you say the pipe's going to last 40 years or the boiler is going to last for 23 years, and so when the year 22 or 23 comes up, we're going to have enough money to buy a new boiler or fix the old one. I mean, that's planned. But that's not blind run to failure, which I think you're accepting. Just let everything go till it breaks. We encourage municipalities to have a capital replacement program and try to keep track of what they own and try to be ready to repair it and be surprised less. But you and I both know that surprises happen all the time, right? You got to put a boiler in a building that should last 40 years and it fails after 20. Life happens like that, and municipalities try to roll with the punches. We try to help them where we can, and even the major pipe failure in Calgary, they have a very substantial capital replacement fund, which was more than enough to fix that, but they were still surprised when it happened, and maybe because it didn't last as long as, I don't know, I guess I don't know all the ins and outs. But
No, but what I learned from that project is the city was able to plan ahead, and 2 years ago had ordered parts that were replacement parts, which arrived just in time, and so that's nice, but it was...
That's partially true, yeah, and partially they had help with somebody finding pipe down in the southern U.S. and put it on a truck and got it up that they didn't have planned 2 years ago, but we work as a team with the municipalities and try to assist.
Okay. Appreciate the time tonight, Mr. Minister, and everybody here. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, the